and the panelists, I just want to say something very quickly about W.E.B. Du Bois, because that's actually what my dissertation is on, and who I spent the last 6 years with Dr. Montero kind of learning about and reading about every day. And in the spirit of Du Bois, this panel is called The Souls of Black Folk, Art, Culture, and Emancipation of Humanity. It features Ewuare, Osayande, Ozzie Jones, Martinez, and Ursula Rucker. Did I say that right? Yes. Okay. And it's going to be moderated by Lorenzo Pierce, who I'll give a very brief bio of, and then he'll introduce the bio of each of the panelists. But nonetheless, The Souls of Black Folk. And for many of you, I don't know if you've ever read that book, and just know they consider it a masterpiece, but it's the beginning of Du Boisian thought. It's not the end of Du Bois. It's the very beginning of Du Bois. In fact, it's not even a book. It was a collection of essays that Du Bois had wrote over the course of some years, and then when he was approached by A.C. McClurk and Company of Chicago, they asked him if he would add a couple of chapters, one of which being of Mr. Booker T. Washington and others. And so when we're here discussing Du Bois, you have to understand Du Bois is ultimately, as Dr. Montero will teach us, he's fighting for black and human liberation. And he's willing to take into consideration all of which is progressive in thought in order to fight for that liberation. So what that means is he's against all forms of oppression, be it racism, classism, sexism, so on and so forth. And the same token is Du Bois has a deep understanding, just like King does, if you ever study King's philosophy of nonviolence. Understand the philosophy of nonviolence, the central concept is love. And as he breaks that concept down, he settles on the most important part of love is the agape sense. I'm not necessarily into quoting a lot of Greek, as a brother Jimmy would tell you, we're more into Kiswahili back in the day. But then as agape is the understanding, the recognition of the interrelatedness and interconnectedness of all of humanity. It's very powerful understanding that concept of love. And so this panel here, we must not forget that in the process of fighting for liberation, the role of art and culture. Art is not just for art's sake. Study African aesthetics, you know art is for liberation. All of art is to be used for liberation, a much broader purpose of art. So considering I can probably talk all day, I want to toss it up because I don't want to hold them back any longer. Let me introduce Lorenzo Pierce, who is a writer, a youth mentor, and a community member of West Philadelphia. More specifically, he was born and raised in the 300 block of West Park housing projects in the Powelton section of West Philadelphia. He currently works in the University Community Collaborative here at Temple University, and he is the editor and co-founder of theganglandblog.com. Through his experiences in writing and traveling through the inner cities in Europe and South America, he seeks to create a counter-narrative about the youth of color in the city of Philadelphia and the world over. Let's give a warm welcome for Mr. Lorenzo.
Peace and love, my people. How are we today?
Peace and love.
That's what's up. Before I want to say anything, I just want to thank and shout out and put out some love to my fellow organizers of this conference. I just thank all of them for their help, for their support, and I just want to let those know that are in the room, like the organizers of this conference, the people who have helped, the panelists. We have nothing to be disappointed in, and I just thank everybody for their presence and their growing up, I had very firm parents, you know what I'm saying? My mother, originally from South Philly, 18th and Latona, and my father, who was originally from Durham, North Carolina, North Durham, North Carolina, really taught me, a lot of, stern lessons, firm lessons. And, one thing that he always, said to me, would really, really drive this into my head was whenever you're in a space that you've been invited to, that you don't think you necessarily belong in, but you're here, so you do belong there, you're supposed to respect yourself and everybody around you. So I just want to establish that as well. As for myself, as I said, my name is Lorenzo Pierce, and welcome to our 4th People's Assembly of the Black Radical Tradition Conference. And it is titled, as Brandon said, The Souls of Black Folk, Art, Culture, and the Emancipation of Humanity. Before I fully introduce myself and go into some more background, I just want to introduce our amazing and our distinguished artists on our panel today. First, I will introduce Philadelphia's own Ursula Rucker. Miss Ursula Rucker is a Philadelphia-born poet, mother, activist, and recording artist. She has been performing, recording, and releasing works for over 20 years. Ursula has traveled and toured extensively throughout North America, Europe, Asia, Australia, New Zealand, and Africa. That's like almost every continent. I'm gonna get there quick. Sharing her poetry, her heart and soul, she's dedicated to art as and for social change, and she is committed to freedom fighting, truth telling, peace, and also some trouble. She's honest, and that's a good thing. But she has done all of this, through her chosen art form. Ursula believes in taking her art as far as it can go, whether it be through teaching, activism, lecturing, conducting workshops, merging it with music, and recording or rocking mics and stages. To date, Ursula has released 5 solo albums, as well as collaborated on over 100 songs in a wide array of musical genres with producers and artists from around the world. Ursula was awarded both the Leeway Foundation's Art for Change and Transformation Award. She is the feature of a documentary short titled Poet. Last year, she successfully premiered her first one-woman show and live memoir titled My Father's Daughter, and she is touring with it. Currently, Ursula is working on her 6th solo album, her first house music EP, and she's playing on her first book project. Please welcome Ms. Ursula. Next, we have someone who I have learned a lot from a really short amount of time. His guidance, his words, and just what he brings to a space is just some very powerful stuff, very powerful person. And that's Martinez. Mani is a stateless queer artist and organizer. He has organized with students and community members in Newark, New Jersey, and in Philadelphia, and he is focused on creating and nurturing spaces that politicize art and self-expression to build working-class collective consciousness, economic self-determination, and political power that centers Black and brown existence within the U.S. empire. And I also want to thank Mani again because, like I said, his gifts, he just got a lot to offer, so let's please welcome him. Next, we welcome Mr. Ozzie Jones. Mr. Jones is the founder and artistic director of the Rhythm One Company, whose focus is training, artistic development, and new work and new artists. And he is the director of the Shipley School Middle School Performing Arts Program. Mr. Jones has been a writer, director, and teacher of stage and film, and a composer and performer throughout the United States and Europe since 1992. And that's the year I was born, by the way. So. I just want to say we have some story veterans here. So I just want to for a long time. I do. It's a special year. For stage, Mr. Jones has most recently directed Death of a Salesman, Arthur Miller, The Meeting by Jeff Stinson, Beauty and the Beast, 12 Angry Men, The Last Jimmy, which features Dice Raw from The Roots, short plays written by inmates for the Philadelphia Fight Organization for Inmates' Rights, Oliver Twist, and many more. Currently, Mr. Jones is developing a large series of plays on jazz called The Real Book. Mr. Jones has either directed or performed with Patti LaBelle, Ruby Dee, Tajaki Changé, William Pope, L. Walter Dallas, Sonia Sanchez, Jill Scott, Guy Davis, The Roots, the Wu-Tang Clan, Schoolie D, Public Enemy, Poor Righteous Teachers, and the list goes on with his many other collaborations, projects, awards, and achievements. Please welcome Mr. And next, I will introduce Ewuare Osayande. He is an activist, a poet, and educator. He is the author of several books, including Blood Luxury and Who's America, New and Selected Poems. In 2012, Osayande edited and published the global anthology Stand Our Ground, poems for Trayvon Martin and Marissa Alexander that raised thousands of dollars for both campaigns, and we thank him for that. So let's do So before I take a seat, I just want to give some background and just establish the tone for our panel, if that's cool. As stated, I'm from West Philly, right? And, this is kind of a side note, but since I'm speaking at this conference and it is taking place in the city and I'm from the city, I just want to talk about this for a few minutes. I'm from West Philly, and in my heart, there is a very special place for a group of people. I'm sure many of you have heard of this special, amazing revolutionary family known as MOVE. As was said, MOVE holds like a very special place in my heart. It wasn't in any school or any classroom that told me about MOVE. It was my mother, her teaching me about these people in my home. And I just thought it was a very weird thing because you have, the events that took place in the late 70s, and then you have the event that took place in the early 80s. And this happened in this city, and we're hearing about terrorism, and we're hearing about all of these things being committed against Americans, and then you're 13 years old and you figure out that, a family was brutally bombed, like, in your neighborhood. And I really just had trouble grasping that fact when I was a young man. I just want to say that, it's only right, since I bring up MOVE at this conference, that I just say, long live John Africa, free New York, and I also look, many people don't notice, I kept it to myself for a very long time, but I look to John Africa and Mumia as, two of my biggest political influences. A lot of people don't notice that, John Africa and myself, we share the same date of birth. He was born in Mantua, which is basically the section of West Philadelphia that's right below me. So I'm in Powelton, and then Mantua is like basically right down the street. And those things I really like champion and hold close to me. And as for Mumia, known to be a great writer and journalist, and that's the venture that I look to go into in my life. And I also just want to point out that John Africa was a really special guy. The fact that he was able to stand in federal court, defend himself, and beat the federal government at their game. Many black men aren't even able to do that. I think it's like, 1.8% of black men who are in federal court that, walk free. So I just wanted to point that out as well. And lastly, I just want to say peace to Miss Pam, Miss Ramona, and the rest of the MOVE family who we've had with us this weekend. I just also want to say, and also, speaking about like incarceration and, the souls of black folk, I just want to say, free those that I know who are wrongly incarcerated, and also rest in peace to the souls of those who have faithfully departed from us. So I just keep those people in my heart at this moment and always. I'm not an expert on the black radical tradition, but I'm definitely a student. Being in these spaces, my mind is ever learning, my mind is ever changing, and I'm just learning so much, and I'm just, as this kid, from like you said, the 300 block, it's just kind of surreal that I'm in these spaces. The fact that Angela was able to just be in the same room that I was in, and Cornell West, and all of these, just distinguished people. It's like I just never imagined this for myself. So, it's just really a humbling experience to be here. And being a part of this conference, being on a committee and just putting it together is probably the most powerful thing that I've been a part of. More about just some of the people we had here this weekend. Back when I was in the 6th grade, it was a nickname that I had coined for Cornell West. I had seen him in my social studies book, and he was one of the only black people to show up. And there was like an earlier picture when he was younger. I believe he took the picture at Princeton University. He was very young, young Cornell West. And he was dressed the same exact way in that picture that was probably taken, I don't know what year, to, he dressed the same exact way. Growing up, we watch cartoons and, cartoon characters kind of always wear that same outfit or whatever. So I kind of had this name for Cornell West. I kind of dubbed him, he's the last black superhero that we had. And, since he's at this conference, he's not in this room right now, but I just want to thank him because he is the one black leader or one of the black leaders that have stood with the people and not have betrayed them. I'm sure a lot of you probably read, Michael Eric Dyson's, whatever he wrote last year, and it was just kind of hard to deal with that because, you have this really extensive writing piece, and it's one quote unquote black academic basically attacking another, and that was kind of like weird, but I just really want to thank Cornell for that. And people like Cornell, people like Dr. Montero, people like, Sister Wanda and Pam and Ramona, the fact that, I respect these elders so much is because that their names ascend to places, like, that's beyond our reach, but, like, they keep their ear to the street. You know what I'm saying? Like, they really know what's going on out here for those of us that are on the ground level and in the communities. So, I just really want to thank them for their guidance thus far. Just some further background about myself. I started writing at the age of 13 years old. And during that time, I had very severe anger issues. And my mother, who is a black woman, she was initially the vanguard for my art. She's the one that told me, you're having all of these problems. We're taking you to this counselor. You don't think they understand you. You don't think you. So it's time to understand yourself. Why don't you pick up a pen and piece of paper and start writing? You know what I'm saying? To purge your young black soul of any anger and anxiety or any, evil that I was feeling in those moments when I was younger. So I can get to know myself better and to also emancipate myself from all those negative feelings. And it did, you know what I'm saying? I personally never thought of myself as an artist, but after seeing what writing, after seeing what it did for me just intellectually and spiritually, I kind of thought about it and I kind of took that title into consideration. And I first didn't start writing to become, some famous political writer. I didn't, not for the reasons that, some people may think, but I started writing just to like get out of my neighborhood for a change, you know what I'm saying? Like, I would practice and, a lot of times I would hear about these essay contests coming up and I'm like, well, damn, I'm writing, maybe if I write, I can, cash out and kind of, put things away so I can like see the world and travel and, and that's what I did. I entered in some writing contests. I was able to get funds and things like that to go travel with certain student ambassador programs to, like you said, the inner cities in Europe. And in 2013, I traveled to Brazil, like 2 summers ago, 2013. So, it's just really hard for me to really think of myself as an artist, but I'm getting there. You know what I'm saying? And I just look to learn from these people who we have with us today. But after traveling, I really fell in love with the pen and the paper. It's and once I fell in love with it, like I knew that's what I had to offer to the world. And speaking of the souls of black folk, in the 1920s there was this debate that was, conducted by a guy who you just heard about named William Edward Bernhardt Du Bois, correct? The debate was mainly conducted by him, and on the other side was another guy who you may know. His name is Alan Locke. Du Bois argued that all art is propaganda. That is good propaganda. That the things that we see and hear should motivate us, spiritually, emotionally, and radically to try to like change ourselves and change the state that we're in. And so in 1926, and this is actually the 90th. This year is going to be the 90th anniversary of the speech. In 1926, he delivered a speech, and it was titled "The Criteria for Negro Art." And this took place at the 1926 conference of the NAACP. And at this conference, they were awarding another guy you may know, Carter G. Woodson. And so it marked the 90th anniversary, and it took place in Chicago. In it, Du Bois argues that not for narrow literature that bludgeons the reader, but art that has a social message and art that works for the behalf of racial advancement. That's what he's calling for, and that's why he says, art is good propaganda. Art should also deploy truth to promote universal understanding and goodness to engender sympathy and human interest. And I just thought that, after reading the speech, that what he's saying almost a century ago, these things are very so much prevalent today, and you're going to hear, because I'm going to read an excerpt lastly before I take a seat. So the excerpt is as follows. Do not doubt, but there are some in this audience who are a little disturbed at the subject of this meeting, and particularly at the subject that I have chosen. Such people are thinking something like this. How is it that an organization like this, a group of radicals trying to bring new things into the world, a fighting organization which has come up out of the blood and dust of battle, struggling for the right of black men and black women to be ordinary human beings, how is it that an organization of this kind can turn aside to talk about art? After all, what we who are slaves and are black, what do we have to do with art? He continues, or perhaps there are others who feel a certain relief in our saying, after all, it is rather satisfactory that all this talk is about rights and fighting, whether to sit down or to stand up or to dream of something which leaves a nice taste in the mouth. So he's basically saying in this part that, is it kind of silly that we in here talking about like a painting or a song? Is it that deep? Can some message be found through these mediums? And so he continues. Let me tell you that neither of these groups are right. The thing that we are talking about tonight is part of the great fight that we are carrying on, and it represents a forward and an upward look, a pushing onward. You and I have been climbing breasting hills. We have been climbing upward. There has been progress, and we can see it day by day by looking back along the blood-filled paths. But as you go through the valleys and over the foothills, so long as you are climbing the direction, north, south, east, or west, is of less importance. When you gradually as the vista widens and you begin to see the world at your feet in the far horizon, then it is time to know more precisely whether you are going there and exactly what do you want. And what do we want? What is the thing that we are after? As it was phrased last night, it had a certain truth. Some of us want to be Americans, full-fledged Americans with all the rights of other American citizens. But is that all? Do we want simply to be Americans? Once in a while, though, all of us, there can be some flashes of some clairvoyance or some clear idea of what America really is. We who are dark and can see America, we see it in a way in which white Americans cannot. And seeing our country thus, we are satisfied with its present goals and ideals. I don't know if we should be. In other words, what should we say about the state we live in? How can we do and say more about the brutal state we're living in? Should we be creating art and challenging the minds and the souls of our people? And in this next part of the excerpt, this is the last part. Again, I remind you, this is 90 years ago. You know what I'm saying? So everything he's saying is basically taking place in our society today. So he continues, lastly, with the growing recognition of Negro artists in spite of the severe handicaps, one comforting thing is occurring to both white and black. They are whispering, here is the way out. Here is the real solution of the color problem. The recognition of accorded greats such as Cullen, Hughes, Fawcett, and White, and others show that there is no real color line. The entertainment industry, he's calling out at this point, is he's saying that, they're saying, keep quiet, don't complain, work for us, and all will be well. So basically, if you work for the machines, if you work for these bigger recording companies, then you'll be fine, and you'll have money, and don't worry about your people. Just be individualistic and worry about yourself. So lastly, he says, we black folk may help for what we have within us a race of new starings. Starings of the beginning of a new appreciation of joy, a new desire to create art, of a new will to be, as though in this morning of some group life, we had awakened from some sleep that once dimly mourns the past and dreams a splendid future. And there has come the conviction that the youth at this time, the youth that are here today, is a different kind of youth. The Negro youth, because in some new way, they bear the mighty prophecy on their breast, with a new realization of itself and with new determination for all mankind. Brothers and sisters, this is the souls of us black folk, our art, our culture, our emancipation of us and the rest of humanity. Thank you. And now at this time, I call to the podium Ms. Ursula Rucker.
What you said? It's my turn?
Yeah.
What am I supposed to do? Just talk about myself? You just want me to talk about myself? It's my favorite thing. Hello, I'm Ursula Rucker. I am a poet, a mother. I have 4 sons, and through my poetry, I also rant and rave, which we like to call activism or whatever. So it's something that I've been doing for over 20 years. I had to learn this path, you know. It's like I had to. Every little step I took, there was like another level to it that revealed itself as I moved forward in it, you know. So now I'm fully in it. Whereas when I was younger, you know, I didn't want to embrace the fact that, oh, you know, maybe I might be kind of sort of like something like an activist. I'm not sure, perhaps. And then, you know, as time went on, there's really no way for me to avoid it or get away from it, and I wouldn't try to avoid it at all now because I love it. It makes life amazing and beautiful, as well as hard as, I would choose another word, but I see the little people in here, hell. Okay, because my other favorite word starts with an F, but I'm gonna hold off on that. And so, you know, this is what I do. This is what, I don't know money, but I'm sure this is what you do as well. This is what we do. You know, Ewuare and I were talking about a little bit when we were sitting right there, you know, that, you know, sometimes, you know, even my dearest, closest friends, my sisters who know me better than anybody, who hold my deepest secrets, still, you know, they have their jobs and that's cool. Like, that's what they do. That's what they're used to. That's their life. That's what they chose. And when shit isn't popping for me, you know, because sometimes it's not. Okay, sometimes it's not, and so this is the life that we live. So it's like, okay, I chose to stay on this path. I've been on here sans what other people would call a real job, you know, for about 16 years. And when people ask me, how do you do this? Usually my answer is, I don't know. And then the next part of that is by the grace of God. So, you know, they'll come to me and say, oh, you know, when stuff is really hard, like right now, hey, Urs, you know, I'm saying, I don't want to get you upset or nothing, but did you know, you think you might want to try to, no, I'm gonna stay here. I'm gonna do this because this is what I need to do. This is so if I go over here, you know, and I go to do something that I wake up every morning and I'm not my full self, and I'm going to be somebody else's version of me, you know, every day, which is what I would be doing. That's not what everybody's doing, but that's what I would be doing. And so this is not just like sometimes when I go and I do a concert with my, you know, because one of my specialties is doing my poetry and my ranting and raving with a little musical accompaniment to kind of fake y'all out. And you're like, wait a minute, though, what she talking about? No, the music is fly, but hold up. And, you know, so it's like, that's where I'm going to stay. Because that's where I'm my full self. That's where I feel like, oh, I'm a good person here. You know, every place else, I got to work on it. But right here, I'm doing what I want to do. I'm trying to be the best, you know, human/alien I could possibly be. So, you know, this is what we do, and this is what we're going to talk about, you know. I mean, I don't really know how it's going to manifest, as we, you know, when you have questions and there's other energy and people pose their questions and have their thoughts and opinions, but this is why we're here. This is all part of this. Shit, I am the Black radical tradition, live, sitting in this chair, talking to your ass right now. We can call it what we want. We can put off whatever kind of little words you want. I'm good at strapping words together. We can be all fancy and creative and shit, but that's me. Next.
Thank you so much, Ms. Rucker, for being here this afternoon. We appreciate it. Next, I would like to call on the brilliant Martinez.
Well, I think it was wonderful, powerful how Lo talked about. Well, that's how we call him, Lo. When he talked, I guess I want to set up a framework before I talk about not only art but self-expression. When he said that W.E. Du Bois said that all art is propaganda, and I think it's not only art but self-expression. When you have economic system like capitalism that uses every single institution, I'm doing this flow over these days to just get us ingrained into this idea of empires. That in this particular empire, Black genocide has been used as an economic tool. It's the foundation of how a lot of the nation states in the Americas were built, in the Caribbean. And because of the force, the threat of and the potential of rebellions, of slaves, they gave them emancipation. They gave citizenship. And the current and today, now that Black bodies have been used and they have citizenship and a facade of rights, then there needs to be another system of control, which is the police and the justice system. And once you're not able to exploit and you're not focusing on giving jobs to them, you displace workers because you take the resources from their countries. So they have to go somewhere, and they go to where the empire, where the resources are, where the jobs are. So that framework, in order to understand that, we have media, we have television, we have fashion, we have art, everything that tells us about how we should see everything in the world at a global stage is white. So, and it's a propaganda. Because they want us to identify with Katniss Everdeen, that a revolution can happen under the leadership and within the white imagination. That Titanic, that the intensity of that love can only happen between a white man, a heterosexual cis white man, and a white heterosexual cis woman. Everything, and this permeates in everything about our culture, and that's what art and self-expression is part of all of that. So, I guess I'll just leave it with that introduction, and we'll keep it flowing. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Mani. Next, we have two gentlemen left at this time. I'd like to call on Mr. Ozzie Jones.
So, as he was saying, I'm a stage director of some film, but predominantly stage and a musician, and probably the thing I am proudest of is an educator, because I've always agreed with Malcolm's position that the birthplace of any revolution is in the study of history and in education. So teaching children is, for me, the most revolutionary act that any person can participate in. Whether you're teaching other people's, or most importantly, whether you're teaching your own. But having said that, I am very familiar with Du Bois. I read it a lot. I read him a lot when I was younger, and all through school. And it's funny, is while my son was doing my son is a senior, and he was doing this project. We had to do the thing, the thing they make you do, the idiotic debate thing they make you participate in, about Du Bois and Booker T. Washington. Where this thing where like black people can't have competing ideas about something without making it a fight. So because I actually personally don't, like Martin and Malcolm, I actually don't think they disagree at all, really. Like, I don't think there is any disagreement, but again, you know, it's like, you know, Biggie and Tupac gotta be fighting, you know what I mean? Like, kind of shit. But one of the things particularly in the quote the young man read, that I actually have always disagreed with Du Bois, is the notion that all art is propaganda. I actually feel like art that is propaganda isn't art. I personally have a very much George Clinton, Bob Marley way of looking at what I do. That the goal of the art that a human being makes is to, one, be honest, and is to speak to the human condition, whatever that human condition may be. I personally don't believe in any kind of censorship or any subject matter, whether it be racial, gender, you know, whatever. I mean, like a perfect example, I remember I was giving a lecture at Villanova, and one of my favorite films is Birth of a Nation. And one of the reasons I love that film so much is Birth of a Nation is exactly what America actually thinks of black people. So if you do not allow people to speak freely, then you don't know what they think. And the way you're supposed to know what people think is by the art they make. And you know, when Woodrow Wilson called it history made in fire, he's absolutely right. Right? Like the way black people are viewed in that. And it's funny too, because I always feel like, you know, I remember somebody asked me, when I was giving a lecture, they were asking me, like, this black person, you know, like, why aren't you more offended by the film? And I was like, ain't no black people in that film. Like, all the characters that's supposed to be black is white men wearing blackface. So he ain't talking about me personally. He's talking about what he thinks about black people, which I love to hear. And I love him to speak as freely as possible. So I just to quickly put, and this is something I've been recently talking about a lot, that I actually think with my work and the work that I love, that the notion of resistance, for lack of a better word, or politicization, how do you pronounce that? In art for the people meaning everyone, right? I in fact, like Martin, agree that art actually is the weapons of this. Like it's the nuke, right? Like, and I think one of the things they represent in racism about black people is the lie that white supremacy fears our violence, right? And they don't, because no one on earth, the 20th century has proven that no one on earth is or has been more violent than white supremacy. So they in fact love violence. I mean, if you look at shows like Jackass, they love violence to themselves. I mean, actually, like, not even to be trying to be funny about it, like this sort of self-deprecating, or like Jean Genet, this writer named Jean Genet has this play called The Balcony. And in The Balcony, it's like all these people who sort of have these, what do you call it, what's the word? Like civil jobs, like these jobs, like the characters are like the priest, the cook, the magistrate, like that. And then they go into this place, and then they put these outfits on, and then they get their freak on, like. And all the freak stuff is like not even really about sex. It's like the violence is sex. You understand what I mean? Like that is a very white supremacist way of looking at sexuality. It definitely ain't an African. So I think that what they fear, and I think this is what Bob Marley understood, this is what John Lennon understood, I think this is what Jimi Hendrix understood, that what white supremacy fears is our love and ability to create from nothing. That they cannot do. So if you put, a bunch of yourself there, so like if you take, just really quickly, if you take hip hop as an example, being 45, I could say I was present for one summer, ain't nobody rapping, and then we come back to school in the fall and then we all rap. So I can remember when it didn't exist and then it did. So you put, after the King riots, you put a whole bunch of, black people in this wasteland of burned down, abandoned buildings in South Bronx, and you lead them niggas here to die, right? And then 14-year-olds, and let me be clear, 14-year-olds take a piece of cardboard, dance, break into the subway, write their name on it, so that all the white people down on Madison Avenue gotta see their name. You understand what I mean? Like, that's real. Like, that is the revolutionary act that white supremacy feels. And then what they generally do is first make it illegal, then discredit it as not art, then throw money at it. So that once you throw money at it, then everybody bows down to the money and they stop using the music to speak the human condition. So for me, the warriors of freeing human beings are and have always been artists. And yeah, that's what I think.
Amen.
Thank you, Mr. Ozzie. You point out something that's, in my mind right now when you talk about the graffiti and, deem it as illegal, washing and throw money at it, 5 points. I don't know if any of you guys ever heard of 5 points and what happened to that, just that haven of just black, like what's been done to that is that's the example. They basically painted like all of the buildings white and now they're going to be apartments. You know what I'm saying? So again, still taking place to this day. And I'm going to shut up now and give it to Brother Ewuare Osayande.
Yeah. So I'm a poet and all that business, so I got to be standing up, doing my thing. I'm really happy to be here because I got a lot of stuff on my chest I got to get off. We living in some crazy times. And for me, we talked about, first of all, let me just say how crazy it is to be on this panel with two folks I have been in adoration of since I was back in the day with them, running up and down the streets of Philly, popping off at different poetry venues throughout the city. To see who Ursula Rucker and Ozzie Jones have become, for me, y'all caught me there, right? Yeah. Ozzie Davis. Ozzie.
That was a compliment.
But that was a compliment. I mean, that may have been some Freudian stuff going on, but it was truly sincere all the same because y'all don't understand. Like when I was, me and I, we're the same age. I'm not going to, put Ursula on blast, nothing like that. We were the same age, and we all got children. All had kids on our back. With our poetry and our art. Just trying to represent, just trying to say our piece, just trying to get off our chest the things that we needed to say and do it in a way that was beautiful. It was as beautiful as our black selves.
Precisely.
And to see what they have become without Sony, without Warner Brothers.
Yes.
You see what I'm saying? Because that's what time it is, folks. These are the kind of decisions, and that's who we are. Our lives are but the collection of decisions we've made over its entirety. And so it's when we talk about being conscious, not just being conscious culturally, but it's about being conscious culturally in the context of a society that has deemed your culture criminal, that sees your culture as product to be bought and sold on the marketplace. And so when we begin to understand that, when we begin to appreciate that and then operate accordingly, now we're ready to talk about struggle. That's all it's ever been for us here. And if we didn't understand that then, we certainly understand that now. Now I'm going to take the position that, I think it's a question of semantics, or it can be, as I've heard what Ozzie said about art as propaganda, because I believe and understand and appreciate and agree with everything he said about his position. But for me, art is political. That to speak to the human condition is itself a political act. Particularly when you're talking about a people whose humanity has always been under fire and in question. And so when we understand that, again, so I got something here I'm going to say. I'm going to read a poem, and then I'm going to sit down. Again, referencing Du Bois' criteria of Negro art in 1926, where he says that all art is propaganda. We see now further, all propaganda is art. But what is the fundamental purpose of art but to send a message, to capture reality as it races forward in time, and in so capturing, in a song, in a poem, in a painting, in a dance, to define reality. Every day we are assaulted on every side, bombarded with images, with art that tells us we are worthless, that we in our very skin are but mere bodies, no heart, no mind, no soul. And when we show ourselves otherwise, we are attacked. When we speak our peace, when we stride defiantly in our dignity, when we act on spirit, in spirit, we are attacked for being who we are, for being black. Our culture is our way of life. In the American experience, the black culture has served two purposes, fundamentally, to act as shield and spear, defense and offense. At its best, it has defended us against the attacks of a white supremacist worldview that is based on the overt, absolute degradation of black people wherever, whoever we are. At its best, it has been our offense. And what is that offense? Fundamentally, it is the assertion of our natural humanity. That is our offense. That is our expression of who we are as human beings on the world, as black people. And as such, it is considered offensive to the sensibilities of a system that is predicated on the denial of our humanity. And one can't get past the irony of it. We who are indeed the first people to walk the earth, to speak, to think, to sing, to dance, to cook, to build, to love, are now and have been made to defend that which and who and what we are. Our culture is our repository of our humanity. In that struggle, we have sowed a tradition, brought out the fire and brimstone of slavery and Jim Crow. Our culture is our fight back. And today that fight back is most needed right now. Every day we see another video of one of our own killed like dogs in the street by those sworn to protect and serve the interest of the elite. We witness with our own eyes, from a place of plain powerlessness, the recorded executions, machine gun repetition of our kin, psychic damage that is done. For we know the message is made very clear that in that person that is dead, we see ourselves, because they died simply for being black. The message is very clear. This too could happen to you. It serves a critical purpose. This generation, where black folks now have what is called the conversation. And I don't need to explain that any further to anybody in this room. But what's the purpose of the conversation? In the hope that we will secure our child's life in the face of this violence. But we are here to have a different kind of conversation. The kind of conversation on what it will take to bring about a world without police, a world without a corrupt criminal justice system, without a state that functions as the political arm of the elite. What will it take to bring about a world where the poor are no longer powerless and the rich no longer ruthless? In fact, we are here to envision a world where those categories have no meaning. These acts, these acts that are illegal in every other world but ours. It's an attack on our spirit. But when you kill the spirit, you kill the will of the people. When you kill the will of the people, you cause them to accept the conditions of their oppression, if only to survive. I'm going to quote Emile Cabral, the great Pan-African revolutionary, in his speech in 1970 when he visited the United States. He says, at the start of the speech on culture and national liberation, he says, when Goebbels, the brain behind Nazi propaganda, heard culture being discussed, he brought out his revolver. It shows that the Nazis, who were and are the most tragic expression of imperialism and of its thirst for domination, had a clear idea of the value of culture as a factor of resistance to foreign domination. He goes on to say, history teaches us that in certain circumstances, it is very easy for the foreigner to impose his domination on the people, but it also teaches us that whatever may be the material aspects of this domination, it can be maintained only by the permanent, organized repression of the cultural life of the people concerned. In fact, to take up arms to dominate the people is above all to take up arms to destroy or at least to neutralize, to paralyze its cultural life. For with a strong indigenous cultural life, foreign domination can never be sure of its perpetuation. At any moment, depending on the internal and external factors determining the evolution of the society in question, cultural resistance may take on new forms in order to fully contest the foreign domination. Today, this is me talking now, that most tragic expression of imperialism is none other than the United States, as it has been for quite some time. And our condition is a consequence of that tragedy. Not a Greek tragedy, but an American tragedy. A tragedy that continues to get played out all over the world stage as we witness the results of a social fabrication. The privileged status of being born in the world with pale skin. Biology made over into a monstrosity, whiteness in all its violence and violent tendencies. The hideous creation of Dr. Frankensteins in the laboratories of colonialism. As Cabral clarifies, domination can only be secured with the organized repression of the cultural life of the people concerned. We are that people concerned. Our culture is our way of life. Our way of being in the world, that way, has been criminalized, vilified, demonized. When Darren Wilson testified before the grand jury that would later exonerate him, stated that when he saw Michael Brown in Ferguson, he saw a demon. Where did he get that concept? Where did that image come from? Was it from his school? Did he learn it in church? Or did he learn it in his home? Did he learn it watching a movie? Or on a TV? Or in a song? What works of art did he bring up in his white mind to justify his cold-blooded action? This demonization impacts all of us who are black, not just men and boys. When they killed our sister Natasha McKenna there in Fairfax, Virginia, this past February, they're caught on video released after the officers involved were exonerated, as our sister lay naked, like her ancestors, like our ancestors, violated and viciously beaten and shot by gangs of officers who claimed that she had superhuman strength. Black folks, we're the only people that can go from subhuman to superhuman in a flash. Toni Morrison writes in Playing in the Dark, quote, Africanism, being black, in the Eurocentric tradition that American education favors both as a way of talking about and a way of policing matters of class, sexual license and repression, formations and exercises of power, and meditations on ethics and accountability. Through the simple expedient of demonizing and reifying the range of color on a palette, American Africanism makes it possible to say or not to say, to inscribe and erase, to escape and engage, to act out and to act on, to historicize and render timeless, end quote. And here we are now in a moment where historic where the historic reality of blackness crashes into the vortex of, dare I say, the black hole of the timelessness of whiteness. What year is it? 2015? 2016? 1916? 1816? 1716? 1616. The timeless, that for us, our blackness for white people is but a way to express itself, that which exists to be acted upon, to be inscribed any race, to be used as a very powerful mechanism for patrolling and policing the behaviors of those classified as white, to ensure the system's perpetuation. I need y'all to hear that. Blackness in the white imagination is used to control white folks. White people need to wake up to this. All over this nation, we've witnessed acts that would set white people off if it were to happen to them. But by the mere fact that it's not them, they can sit by and say, well, that's just so sad. That's just wrong. While black folks and our allies out in the streets in the thousands, many of us weren't going shopping for Christmas this past season.
That's right. Up with Jesus, down with sin.
Right now, we're witnessing a spectacle of white supremacy in Oregon. Armed white men who have taken over the Mahler National Wildlife Refuge, the historic home of the Paiute Native Americans until 1878, when white settlers took it then by force. And here we go again. But it is this spectacle of whiteness, of police chiefs greeting men who are committing federal crimes with handshakes as the feds sit back, not wanting to escalate the situation, and we black folks sit back and watch this in awe. As we recall how they treated Sandra Bland for failing to signal a lane change. A lane change. She's dead because of a lane change. Yet these white men can roll up into a Federal Reserve with guns and get greeted with handshakes and snacks. White boy can walk into a black church in South Carolina, murder those folks in cold blood, and escape with his life. Get arrested and be stopped at the fast food restaurant to give him something to eat. This is our reality. This is the parallel universe in which we live. The world is no different. It's the same damn world.
Yes.
Somehow we're supposed to become. In the face of this craziness, somehow we're supposed to understand. It doesn't just work out the way we would want. But the system is working. Oh yes, the system is definitely working. Tamir Rice, his sister, assaulted, handcuffed, wrestled to the ground and handcuffed, put in the back of the squad car. Why? Because she wanted to rescue her brother who lay there dying. She's arrested. Young girl in Spring Valley High School in South Carolina, thrown across the classroom like a rag doll. For what? What was her crime? We under assault on every side. Our culture is our fight back. We saw that in our sister Bree Newsom when she took it upon herself to take down a symbol of white supremacy, to send a message. That's all art is. We're just sending messages. We ain't taking this no more. Knowing the consequences as she come down the flagpole that morning. It's that kind of courage that we see on the part of our sisters every day. In that one act, she gave black women and all of us a moment that now stands eternal in our hearts. But this is the kind of courage that it will take. The kind that will cause some of us to say, you crazy. All art is propaganda. All propaganda is art. Art, as in the opposite of ain't, in itself is an act of self-determination at its highest. What's up with this white folks? White folks go mad whenever they see a black person on the silver screen playing the role of the hero. Especially when that role is, to them, exclusively rendered for whites. Yet Batman plays Moses in Exodus, God, and Kings. And it's all right. Star Wars, when they showed out that the young brother was going to play the lead role. I mean, white folks took to Twitter like they was going to war. But even in our leading roles, we still play the buffoon. As Du Bois said in that essay, in that speech, they still want Uncle Toms, Topsies, good darkies, and clowns. And I miss Octavia Butler. I miss Octavia Butler. Her work, her vision, her ability to render such clear analysis of the system, of the world. We have to support independent black art. We have to create independent black art, art on our own terms. Art that is for us, by us, with us. Art that is for us, not for the marketplace. Art that is by us, not appropriated. Art that is with us, not elitist. Right now, we're seeing the very spoken word that we cherish being co-opted in the marketplace. Ba-da-ba-ba-ba. I'm not loving it. I'm damn sure not buying it. Not just the food, but also the propaganda. It's kind of hard to call yourself revolutionary when you are being supported by the very forces you supposedly in revolt against. Make a few more comments and I'll be out of your way. 2013, we saw Dr. Dre donate $35 million to USC to develop a new multidisciplinary degree. To USC, of all places, at a time when HBCUs are going under. Our uncritical support of these artists is our support of this very system that has us rotting away in cities where our water is polluted, where the education is piss poor, and the health care is substandard. We cannot idolize the artist, set them above the people, and so therefore we must change. We must change. We must change our relationship to the marketplace. We must change the way we view our culture's place in the marketplace. When our blackness is rendered, someone spoke to this already, when our blackness is rendered as mannequin in the windows of capitalism, we rush in to buy ourselves as defined by them, wearing our skewed identity. We wonder why we in the state we in. I'm not trying to hold up some alternative myth of buy black or black capitalism. I mean to suggest that with the very power of our disciplined dollars, we can bring this system to its knees. We see this happening with the now 2 years coming of the Christmas boycott actions. So what should we do? What do we need to do? For those who call themselves white, for those who are classified as white, I would say this. Whites must do the work of re-envisioning for themselves what it means to be human in the world. For if the neoliberal vision of humanity as cloaked in the marketized and militarized garb of whiteness, as witnessed by the rest of the world, only ends in the annihilation of all life, and that project cannot occur in isolation. This is not an act of putting on a different costume. You cannot put on the cultural self of others and believe you have eradicated your racism. That in itself is an act of racism. You must act in concert in solidarity with the struggle of people of color all over the world, but it begins here at home. Imagine what it would look like if we saw white people en masse in protest marches in the street, organized by they themselves, showing up at the police station, waging sit-ins, shutting it down. Imagine what kind of fissure that would create within the structure, and how difficult it would be then for the powers that be to say, this is who we are. The work is about democracy and self-determination for black people. It is the system's job to kill the spirit, to ensure our domination. Then the artist's role, the black artist's role, has to be at some point in time to raise the spirit. Like the ancient African Jali, to raise the sun with song. And we raise it. We raise it now. One of the most remarkable acts of art, in my estimation, is the creation of 3 words pulled together into a hashtag, Black Lives Matter. And that one statement, that one powerful act of self-expression captured the entirety of the black experience. Black lives matter. For those of you who are Marxists and understand what Mao meant when he said, let 1,000 flowers bloom. That hashtag has risen as the one chosen by the people for the people. Y'all recall we talked about hands up, don't shoot. I can't breathe. But it is this one that has risen to be now understood as the defining title of a movement. Assata Shakur reminds us, it is our duty to fight for our freedom. It is our duty to win. To do that, we must love and support each other, and we have nothing to lose but our chains. Why do we do it? Why do we do this art? As Ursula spoke to, we do it for the love. Not just the love of the art. We don't do it for the love of the fortune. God knows that.
Yeah, sure.
We don't do it for the love of the fame. At the end of the day, we do it for the love of the people. It is there that we place our trust. Tick, tock, tick, tock, tick. He told them it was a clock. But they, echoing the disbelief of the founding father, handcuffed him to a history of extraordinary renditions, interrogated him, like they did Benjamin Banneker, who made America's first clock in 1753 when they lined his block and cross-examined him with equations meant to refute his equality. He forecasted the demise of their bigotry in his almanac, still sitting on a shelf in Monticello, and history repeats itself. A boy genius with a Muslim name and skin as black as Cain makes for bad optics in a militarized America. Brandishing rifles and crucifixes, marching on mosques, trying to reignite the Crusades. Mark the time. Tick, tock, tick, tock, tick. Perhaps they hadn't learned that the very numbers they used to count came from men who prayed to Allah 5 times a day with names like Ahmed. Perhaps they weren't taught about Al-Hassan inventing the scientific method 700 years before Sir Isaac Newton. Perhaps they weren't aware that algebra was once pronounced al-Jabbar. Perhaps they didn't know that the origin of the word genius is genie. Perhaps they weren't taught that it was the Moors that turned on the light in Europe. Or perhaps it doesn't matter, because this is still the dark ages where textbooks made in Texas teach that Africans enslaved were migrant workers, deny climate change, who believe that the earth is just 6,000 years old. For these, progress of turning back the hands of time, crazy as chronos eating their bastardized children to stay alive, but America is browning. And no border patrol can stop an inevitable reparations for those who reaped untold profits from those who sowed the same in sorrow. And there will be no white Jesus coming back to save them who believe that heaven is Jim Crow segregation. Their time is running out. Tick, tock, tick, tock, tick. Is it a bomb? Is it a bomb? No. It is our hearts beating against the death march of those who turned our bodies into bull's-eye targets. Is it a bomb? No. It is our hearts beating a torrential tom-tom of eternal defiance to those who seek our collective doom. Is it a bomb? No. It is our hearts beating in the bodies of those who have seized the time. What time is it? What time is it? Black power reprised and a nation of millions replies. What happens to a raisin in the sun? Tick, tock, boom.
I just wanted to say thank you to our artists. Let's have another round of applause for them. I don't know if you guys had, but we just had some few more minutes left. Did anybody in the audience have any questions or anything? Yeah.
My name is Monica. I'm a student activist from the Bronx, New York. It was kind of touched upon just how, you know, the creation of hip-hop was kind of created by these terrible conditions that our people were living in our communities. And I don't know, this is not really a question, but I just want to hear what you guys think about it. I took this really fantastic class called From Rock and Roll to Hip-Hop at my school in Fordham, and we just talked about the progression of music and popular music and how, you know, Black people pretty much created everything. And we were talking about how you saw with the rise of the crack cocaine epidemic, and, you know, we understand that this drug was introduced to our communities by white capitalists, and you saw at that time, all of a sudden, hip-hop got more violent, it got more misogynist, popular hip-hop got, like, mainstream, what was getting the most attention was getting more violent, misogynistic, etc. And you see nowadays, a lot of popular hip-hop still carries on that tradition of just, you know, money and hoes, and this is what, you know, the masses are paying for, and this is what's getting the most attention. And I just want to, like, I guess basically hear what you guys have to say about the connections between capitalism and how it really exploited, you know, this music and this sudden change in hip-hop culture, and, you know, how we can work to bring that consciousness back, because obviously that political consciousness is not making the capitalists happy, is not going to get the funding, the attention, but how do we make sure that, you know, we can, you know, take hip-hop back to its roots. And this is someone, you know, I live in the future, like, I live to the shit, you know, it's fun, but, you know, the hip-hop, you know, the origins of hip-hop is something that was so political and conscious. You know, when you listen to Grandmaster Flash, the message, like, well, I think it's so important for us to go back to that, because we see, you know, how important it is for our culture and for our people. So, Monica?
Monica? Yeah, you talk fast.
Sorry.
I think I got dog. What's the name of the class?
From Rock and Roll to Hip Hop. It's taught by this guy named Professor Martinez, and he's like a hip hop historian.
Okay.
You know, I'd actually like to address that really quick. Okay. Rock and roll, man. Ladies first.
So I just wanted to say something. I'm short and sweet today. I got a lot inside my system, and you know, just being brief with everything, but clear. And that is, as you were talking, I think something that resonated with me, being a child of hip hop, and always a child of hip hop. And when I say that, I mean all of hip hop. I mean the lifestyle of it, the culture of it, which is what a lot of people forget, you know, because it has been mainstreamed and commodified and bought and sold and pimped out and all that, and mutated and all that good stuff. That when it first started, you know, as Ozzie said, hip hop started out in the park, right? And what it was for is for us to say, we here.
Yes.
and you're going to see us. And more than that, you're going to hear us, and above that, you're going to feel us. Okay? So when we can get back to that, when we can embrace that, when we can work on ourselves, okay? When we can teach our children, when they have options, we can present our children with options when they know. So how you get options is you know your history, you know yourself. Okay? You know your history, you know yourself. You can make it a mantra, you can say it all day. Okay? You know your history, you know yourself. If you're going to walk past the corner boys and you're not going to say nothing, you're not going to acknowledge, you're not going to even give the obligatory Philly affirmative head nod or nothing, okay? Then the corner boys are going to feel like, well, this is where we are and nobody sees us. So we are going to continue to operate as usual, okay? And so it's actually like the most simple things are the most complex, right? So it just lies in how can we, okay, this is my question to all of you. I know, because I do it. How can you, okay? How can you communicate with your young people, number one, okay? With yourselves and your own spirit, number two, because we all know that everybody in this room isn't highly enlightened. So what are you going to do to get yourself to the place where you will be highly enlightened? And that is not to say that you're at a high point where you're looking down on everybody like I'm better than everybody. I mean highly enlightened to the point where you carry in your heart and your soul and your spirit, and you be about that work, which is what this whole conference is, which is why we're all here, because we're about that work. We're not about pontificating or entertaining you, okay? If you get entertained by something that I do, so be it. That's cool, but it's a lot more in there. So, sis, you know, we could get, especially the young people, because I got some in my crib, okay? I have 4 sons. I have a 17-year-old that plays Chief Keef on the regular, okay? Chief Keef and all his friends in them. I hear listen. You know, and I use all language in my work because I'm trying to communicate everything that I possibly can. And like Ozzie, I do not believe in censorship. I believe in honor, respect, and truth. And so if I'm maintaining that in my work, no matter what language I'm using, if I know that I'm being respectful, then, you know, all language is game for me. But yeah, we have, you know, it has to be, we could talk all day. Oh, you know, once something becomes popular, right, and the powers that be get a sniff of it, go, oh, we want some of that. You know, we want these niggas to start stepping, fetching it for us now. We're gonna pay them, and they're gonna fall for it, and then it's gonna go like that, and so on and so on and so on. But when you listen, ain't nobody doing that to these people up here. You can come to me. You can. Listen, I would have more money. Okay? Yes. Because I can do it. I'm a good ass writer. I can write a pop song. You know, and sell my soul, and compromise what I believe in. So we have to teach, you know, the young people to love themselves, to know who they are. Okay, this is not just This is not just rhetoric. To love themselves, you know. You know, like my oldest son didn't even know about the officer not having to pay a legal price for murdering a 12-year-old in the park for having a toy. Yeah. Okay, and nothing happening, and we sit up there, and all of us get traumatized. Every single time this shit happens, we get more and more and more traumatized. And we want to participate, we want to continue to watch these snuff films when they show these videos on Facebook and on Twitter and all of that. All y'all want to click the button and look at us getting killed. Is that going to make you believe anymore that they don't love us? That they don't care about us? You have to subject yourselves to watching snuff films? Huh? You got to continue to take this into your spirit and your body. Do you know what that does to you? Do you know what that does to you? We're all sitting here in trauma. Believe that. Believe that, okay? And we can heal this trauma. We work on healing this trauma. This is what I do, okay? If I had some tissues, I'd burst out crying right now. But I'm being mindful of the fact I don't have no tissues in my bag. So we have to love ourselves, And we have to pass that love onto our sons, our daughters, our neighbors. I don't care. They little smart ass kids. They start saying something, whatever. Okay, that's cool. I'm still going to tell you. I'm going to give you what I want to give you. And then you can go, and trust me, it settles in at some point with some people. And then that's how you fix all that. That's how you fix all that. Because if we're all walking around knowing that we are gods and goddesses and kings and queens and not on so everybody wants to talk about Hotep now, right? Well, Hotep is a very real thing. Okay? It's an energy, it's a power, there's power in the Kemetic. It's real, okay, when you value yourself and your energy. And anyway, it starts there.
Yes. Actually, I just want to do this really quickly. I just want to piggyback on what my sister was saying here in terms of the answer to that. Now, I am Christian, so this is connected to what I think in terms of the answer to this question, right? For me, it's very, very simple, right? The Bible says the love of money is the root of all evil. Now, the way Christianity has been co-opted, right? Now, remember, those people in that book are African people, right? So the way the language in that book has been co-opted, you know, sexuality is the root of all evil, right? Oh, this is the root of all evil. That is all evil. But that ain't what it said. What it says is the root of all evil, encompassing, is the love of money, right? So when you take the example with hip hop that you talked about, and this is one of the things I try to deal with when I teach, is that this co-opting that's happened in hip hop is not specific to hip hop. It happens to all cultures once they break past a certain glass. And what's supposed to happen is, I'll put it even simpler. Culture is created by two people, the poor and the young. All culture. Irish, Russian, Asian, all earth. Poor people and young people create new cultural forms. Now, our age groups perfect it, figure out how to sell it, figure out how to disseminate it, but in terms of it don't exist, I put my hands in the ground and I make it, 14-year-olds do that. So, and they do it of all colors, all races, all periods of time, of earth, right? The Chaucer, Canterbury Tales, a bunch of young soldiers telling stories. You understand what I mean? It's everyone. So, when it gets co-opted, because it always happens, because governments have to do it, which goes to what my sister was saying. What you're supposed to do is love, teach, and work with your young people, support their creativity, so that they go back to the dirt and they make a new one. Right. Because they can create new ones faster and more powerfully than they can destroy the ones that just got made. So I think we get enamored, right? So like our age group, reasonably so, we're enamored with hip hop. You know what I'm saying? Like, you know, like I'm enamored with it. I have, it's like a, what's the word? It's like a mythological to me. But the notion that that was the first time young, poor people made something that, and then in about 30 years they went from I'm poor and I can't do anything to now I have access. That it happened with blues, right? Now mind you, with blues, there's no even really electricity in the areas where the people are creating the blues, right? So the songs that these cats are making, they just flying through the air. Like, I'm not even in, if I'm Robert Johnson, whoever, or even before that, I'm not even in a large metropolitan area. I'm in the woods. Do you understand what I mean? That's right. And then shortly thereafter, Zeppelin, Rolling Stones. Yeah. The young and the poor create the tools. They create the bomb. Then we use it till it gets co-opted, and then we keep teaching them and working with them so they go back and do it again, right? So what I would say is keep working with young people because it may be that it don't need to be hip-hop no more.
That's right. Yes. Yep.
I mean, because when hip hop got made when we were kids, it didn't need to be rock and roll no more.
That's right.
It didn't need to be funk anymore. Like, it just didn't need to be that anymore. And I know when we were 14, when we were 13, you know, like, I mean, Run talks about it all the time. Like, you know, loving Earth, Wind, and Fire, but we didn't want to dress like that.
Yeah, yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, we didn't want to wear dress and, you know, fur boas and, you know what I'm saying? We didn't want to do that. It didn't speak to the situation. So it may be that it just ain't supposed to be that no more. And it needs to, but what does need to happen is what she was just talking about, is the elder to child teach, support, affirm, love relationship. And lastly, what I'll say on that is, and I can say this from my personal career, is I had the blessing of being taught by Sonia and Amir Baraka. And when I say taught, I don't mean in books. I mean, like, they physically taught me, like, sitting in front of me. So that whole black arts movement, Panthers and all of that, they were present with Flash and them.
Multi-generational.
You see what I'm saying? So when, like, the last poets were present with the dudes who invented hip hop. So those 14-year-olds and 15-year-olds had an ideological base. But, you know, crack, all of those elders for them got locked up. So all this music you're listening to now, I mean, it's just wolves. You know what I'm saying? Like, they don't, it's not coming from, that can get fixed just by doing what she said, not being a coward, and going to the block and talking to the shorty, letting them come into your building, letting them come into your theater, letting them come into your studio, inviting him, working with him, so he loves you, you love him. Like, and that's the last thing I'll say. I'll give you a perfect example. I taught in the prison system for a long time, and taught in, like, Camden and all that, like some wild areas. But just real short I'll say on it is, I ain't never told a kid in my class not to curse. I never told a kid in my class not to curse. It is not brain surgery. If they dig Mr. Ozzie, and I ain't cursing at them, in a month they self-correct. Yo, AOB, I'm sorry, man. No, you good, B? It's not complicated. But if I am not present, Shorty gonna do whatever he want, and he should. He should do whatever the hell he feels like doing if I'm not present. But if I'm present and I'm giving him love, it ain't even gotta be punitive. You know what I mean? Like, love is more powerful. I know it sounds cliche, but it's just the truth. It's like, love is more powerful than hatred is. It just is. Yeah. It just is.
Any more questions? Yeah.
And the idea of that, like, I guess we come to a conference and we talk, and then, like, folks such as yourself, you leave the conference and you go do stuff. Like, there's a lot of us here who are students or who are involved in things, and one of the things that's difficult to get passed along is how to, like, endure through problem solving and encountering, like, the roadblocks and the things that step in. And so, like, a lot of this is, like, talking about problems that we already know, but, like, not so much about, like, how do we solve the need to, like, take a step forward tomorrow and walk through that battle. Can y'all give some examples of, like, how you think about problem solving?
Hold on. I mean, I'm sorry. I'm letting everybody know. She just told the dude. Now, I'm going to tell you, my company got started like this. I was living in North Philly. I was living in 19th New York in this group called Name. And I moved in with my man, Grand Agent. We had a little studio in there. We were doing our thing. It was shorties everywhere in the street, like 95 everywhere, selling coke, guns with the safety knot on, not even knowing how to hold the pistol, like wandering, all times of day, all times of night. We went out to them and we were like, oh, well, you know, I'm teaching, you can use the studio. You come through, you can rhyme or whatever. It was a school in 2 months. Now, I'm not talking about we went down and filled out do a school forms and, you know what I'm saying? Whatever that little shit they have you do, like the XJ5 form, and you're gonna send it. I ain't talking about that. I'm talking about we walked up to them and said you could come in my house and get busy with us, and they did. That is how the Harlem Renaissance happened. That is how the Black Arts Movement happened. It is how hip hop happened. That's it.
What's your name?
Michael Taylor.
Michael Taylor? You doing it, bro. You here. You ain't had to come here. You ain't had to be interested in this. This didn't have to move anything in you or resonate in your spirit. You are sitting here, you're listening, you're engaging. You got up, you said something. You're going to take whatever, because, you know, everything that everybody says isn't what you believe or what you feel. So you sort it out, you balance it out, you take what you need and put the other, put it wherever else you want to put it, you know what I'm saying? But you're going to take whatever you got from this. Have you gone to other things during this conference? And you're going to take all of that, right, Michael? You're not just going to, what you're going to do, just all of, when I say all of it, all of what resonated.
What you need.
You're going to take all of what resonated with you, and what you're going to just put it in a box when you get home?
I'm going to go to my studio in like 15 minutes and make art.
So what was the question? Now, so then your job, Michael, right, is when you make your art, is not to, if that's what you're about, you know what I'm saying? If you're about how do we do this, how do we get up each morning, okay? How do we get up each morning and do this, okay? When we have all this trauma, when we have all this weighing heavy on us, we do it, okay? Number one, we just do it. And number two, you can't hear me? You can't, for real? I thought it was loud. Well, we do it, and then you don't keep your art in your studio, right? Then you share it with people, like Ozzie was saying. So that's how we do this. We take it to the people. We make this a communal thing.
And you share it whether you are given money to share it or not. Who getting paid to sit on the panel? Because if you is, I need to talk to somebody. We do this because we want to do this. Because we believe in this. Because we have to do this. Wait, I think
Yeah, you first, you, and then you right here. Yes.
So, I guess first I want to say that I'm a little sprout in comparison to the giants that I'm sitting next to. But I completely understand where your question is coming from. I think as young people, we need clarity and instructions. And I want to say that the process is as important as the product. So I just want to ask, how many people in the room don't see themselves as artists or as creative people? And be vulnerable and be open. Oh wow, wait, so most of the people in the room see themselves as creatives. Okay. Well, probably some of the people that this might not have been their interest, so they didn't come to this panel. They might not see themselves as artists or creatives, but it's important for all of us, in order to dismantle white supremacy, to see ourselves as artists, to reproduce, especially for Black and brown children, to reproduce our own image.
Yeah, well said.
And our aesthetic, and painting, and writing, and singing, and dancing, and cooking, and hugging, and loving. And with the process, to try to give some clarity that BRAC, the Black Radical Artists Collective, which came out of the organizing collective for the conference, we're just a group of young people that are trying to figure out how we can use art to politicize, how we can work on self-economic determination. Those are the things I remember. But I think for me the most important aspect is, and it's challenging, to work together as a collective. We're about, 10 to 15 people, and we're very new, but that's one thing that I would like you and everyone to take back. How can we create art together? How can we envision, how can a singer, a poet, and a painter use their three mediums and create something transformative? How can they create a space where you center Black love for children, everything about this space, because it's the audiovisual experience and what you leave with from this space. I will just leave you with that.
I'll call a few people. So I would just, we just gotta get ready to wrap up. So I just ask that we keep questions and responses as short as possible.
We actually have to go. We have to be out here by 3 o'clock.
By 3.
We
Okay.
apologize.
Okay. Well, I thank the panelists. Also, to continue our discourse today on Black art, there will be an Art for the People Sacred presentation with Emory Jones, a former Black Panther artist, over at the Church of the Advocate down the street. So please join us in continuing our discourse on Black art, and thank you for attending this afternoon. Thank you.